So we're going to try to find some errors with Genesis. And the first thing I'm going to do is create some errors. I'm going to open up I'm going to copy my GeoBase demo, and I'm going to put it into a new folder. Okay, now I'm going to open up this GeoBase demo, and the first thing I'm going to do is delete some callers. So if I delete, say, the first 30 holes from here, okay. So I've deleted the first 30 holes. However, I didn't delete all the traces of these holes. So if we search in our assays table, I still have hole 1. All I did was delete it from the callers table. That means now I have a bunch of dangling information. 30 holes worth of dangling information. I'm going to close my new demo database, and I'm going to go open up Genesis. You could recall earlier we used Genesis regular 32-bit to import my GeoBase file because I am currently running Access 32-bit. If you had Access 64, you would open up Genesis 64. So I'll open up my Genesis 32-bit application, and I will create a new file like we did before. File new, I'm going to call it error 1. And I'm going to save that file. Genesis is making error1.gnft. Okay, now that it is complete, I'm going to import from GeoBase, and I'm going to find my GeoBase file. Remember that there's 2 different types of Access databases. I'm going to change it to GeoBase databases star.mdb. Finds it here. Click OK. Finds my copper variable. OK. I'm just going to continue through this quick. It is importing and it is creating the traces, and here we go. I have a total of 62 holes loaded, 3,544 deviations, 833 assays, 134 lithologies, and 2 structures. I'm going to print a screen here and press OK. Now, was that the same information that was loaded last time? The quick answer is no, and let's take a look at that. Okay, so let's take a look at these side by side. As you can see, now we only have 62 holes loaded, which makes sense. We deleted 30 callers. Originally we had 92. The deviations are considerably less, and that is because of the 30 callers deleted, Genesis will not import any of the information from those callers. Genesis only imports information that are related to holes in the callers table. So notice, those 30 holes contained about 800 assays, which did not get imported. It contained around 65 lithologies not imported, 2 structures not imported. What we'd like to note further, though, is that Genesis did not create an error log. Why didn't it create an error log? It didn't detect any perceptible errors. All it noticed was that it had this many holes, 62, and it retrieved all the data that belonged to those holes. Let's create an extension to the same problem. We're going to open up Access again and our GeoBase demo file. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a caller and we're going to rename hole 31 whole underscore 31. Okay. From within Genesis, we're going to open up a new error 02 file. And we're going to import the GeoBase database that we just made with our error in the name. Okay. And we're going to let Genesis load all that information. And we're going to compare again what has happened. Okay, so we have all of it loaded. And let's take a look at the information we have loaded. Okay, so let's take a look at our data importation again. This time we'll note that 62 holes are loaded. Yeah, we put in the wrong name, but it actually is a hole in the collars and it will load. You'll notice that the deviations are the same. This could be just because hole 1 only had so many deviations or whatnot. Maybe there was no deviations for hole 1, so it's the same as the last file. The assays are different, the lithologies are different, the structures are the same. So there were some assays that were not loaded for the misnamed hole. This is important because if you don't have the information correctly related between different tables, that information will not get imported into Genesis. Further, it's important to note that we did not, again, produce an error log. Genesis did not perceive an error. It found the hole in the collar, didn't find any hole information anywhere else, but that was not a problem for Genesis. It said, fine, I have a collar, I'm going to put it into the database, and that's it. Okay, I hope we're all having fun introducing errors into our data set. It's kind of the opposite of what normally us geologists are doing. I know I'm having a good time. I'm going to open up our GeoBase demo one more time. We'll go back into our collars. We'll notice we still have that error. I'm going to remove that error. I'm going to make hole 31 the same as it was supposed to be. I'm going to go and take a look for the length of this hole. It is 91.44 meters long. I'm going to go into the assays and I'm going to try to find hole 31. And what do I get? I have up to 7211. So I am going to change this last assay interval and I'm going to change it to 90 meters. I'm also going to change something else. I will go in and change I'm going to change this from to here to have a 2 that is less than its from. So we'll change that to 65. And we're going to close it. I'm not going to change the design of assay tables because that is not important. Okay. Now that we're back in our Genesis environment, I'm going to create a new file, error 3, save it. I'm going to load in our new error, length errors, we'll call them. So we'll go and do that the traditional way from GeoBase. I will find my GeoBase. Is it the right directory? Yes. Found copper. Good. Go ahead and do it this way. You'll notice that I'm doing these all as clean installs of the database. There's no particular reason I could overwrite certain data, but I find for illustration purposes this is the easiest way to do it. All right, we have a new data importation table, and we're going to take a look at that right now. Also, we have a import log error. Great. So we're going to take a look at the import error log as well. Okay, so admittedly I made a little mistake here. I was trying to generate 2 errors and I only generated 1. The first error I wanted to generate was I wanted to create a assay interval longer than the depth of the hole from the callers file. I failed to do so. I renamed the assay to 90 meters and the caller was 91. So that error does not get imported in this attempt. However, my second error I was trying to generate was a error for the from 2, and as you will notice in the import log, the error import log that gets generated through Genesis, we have one of our assays has a from that is greater than the 2 length. And what does Genesis do? It doesn't import the assay. Okay, so we're going back to our Access database. We see that hole 31 is 91.44 meters long. Let's go into our assays and let us change this last one to 95 meters. Is that correct this time? Let's hope so. Okay, so let's hope that we get 2 errors this time. We will create a new file. We will call it error 4. Genesis is going to save. We're going to import through GeoBase. Maybe I will do a CSV file on our next example. But for now, we'll use GeoBase. I like working with Access. Okay. Found our copy variable. We're not going to overwrite, append, or alternate coordinates. Genesis is going to import. It's creating everything. I'm going to take a picture here. And we're going to get an error log. And now our error log has 2 errors. The first one is that we have warning in hole 31 for the assay record 70.59 to 95. It goes past the end of the hole. 91.44 meters. This assay record is adjusted. So Genesis has adjusted this record. Warning, in hole 31, the assay record 67.81 to 65 from is greater than 2. This assay record is skipped. So Genesis has done 2 different things. First, it adjusted your error in assay because it went beyond the end of the hole. It adjusted it back to the end of the hole. The second one, it said, oh, this is just wrong. I'm not going to take it. I'd like to note right now that when it comes to importing your data into Genesis, Genesis is not a data validation tool. You should have proper data validation done on your database prior to importing it into your block modeling software. Does that mean that Genesis is not valuable in validating data? Yes, it produces an import log, and it produces import statistics, and you could even export the data that you've imported and see how it imports it. Should you be using it as a data validation tool? Maybe within your toolbox, but it is not a final validation tool. You should always have a properly validated and checked database before starting with Genesis.